Hello and welcome back everyone to Yellow Card TCG. We are here with Game 8 of the VPL finals between Owl Coop and Dinobozos. As of this moment, Owl Coop is 4-3 in the lead, so if they win this game, they will win the entire championship. Joining me today is the one, the only, you know him, you see his face. It is Kris, Mr. DifferentFight himself. Hello, welcome.
It is I. Hello. I've got a pretty high stakes match here to join you for commentary on. So pretty exciting stuff. We got Peter, PBE. Don't ask what those three letters mean. Versus Bailey in this matchup. And so I mean, as you said, this is a chance for one of the teams. For Peter's team, if he wins, to lock in the entire championship, and otherwise it kind of gets down to a tie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's one more game after this. So if Bailey wins, then his teammate needs to win that last game. So it's still really, really tense. And I don't know if you've been looking at the player stats, but Peace has been doing really well the entire season. He's basically only played like meta decks of Shirinu and Luard, but he's been performing on them. As we know, he is a fairly solid player. But Bailey as well has been going some fairly good stats himself. I think he's like 5-3 or like 6-2 or something along those lines. And playing slightly less, like playing good decks like Varga, Blankmeyer. I think he played Wellstra one week. I'm not 100% sure, but
Okay.
like these two are definitely they are in contention for MVPs of their team right now.
Okay, I mean, it does make sense. I mean, they're both well performing, and I mean, Peter's been having a pretty strong run so far as well. We see a little fist bump in the stand-up Vanguard. The starter reveals, we do have Dragon Empire on both sides, and then of course Peter. The restriction for the red line in English has already come into play, right? For the stride decks.
Yeah, so you have to now fully be on Genkai. We've had that for just over 2 weeks now, or well, at the time of this was played, just over 2 weeks.
Right.
But yeah, we will see Peter going second, discarding the Energy Cycler, getting that incredibly strong draw 3. Almost feels like cheating.
Yeah, it's like, are we playing a different game here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. What is this? Oh, he's pumping out the Beyblade. Good God.
This is the secret tech that's been winning him his games. That's what you don't know. Yeah.
The Beyblade energy marker. It's like slightly sus in terms of dimensions and if it's allowed or not. But hey, don't knock it. Don't knock the man if he's winning.
He's also got the turn 1 Shenri for the extra soul and draw. Drive checks the Ford Revertis. So Peter's like he's got pretty much everything he needs ready to go here. Meanwhile, Bailey damages the grade 2. Interesting to note, he's still running the Vargas grade 1 ride line. I've seen a lot of decks transition to the Virgilla grade 1 ride line. What are your thoughts on that?
We've seen that change happen more in Japan now with the most recent set, just because you're actually in set 4 you get more energy users, so you're kind of like, you don't really want to be running the Farhat as much. Like, some people cut it down to 3 or 2, and then the energy kind of goes down to the Twin Pulsive and the Shura. So then in that sense you're discarding less, which means that not having to discard for the grade 1 ride is pretty good. But I think for English right now it's still fine to like either one. And honestly, I think for especially these aggressive turns when you're going first, it's really nice to have like the Varga red line, and we see here, a pretty strong turn 2 from Bailey's side.
Yeah, I think like the tri-lane is something, especially when you're going into a stride deck, despite knowing that the pressure of Ford Reverse, oh my goodness, 3 cyclers seen. Someone stop this man. But yeah, I was about to say, like, the turn 2 tri-lane is something we're seeing a lot of in English now. Like, even like non-stride decks, like just committing pieces early on, just like get that damage lead, just get that tempo early, because of how important that turn 3 swing into turn 4 Persona/Divine is.
Yeah, it's like, I think you also just have a lot of these decks have much better advantage engines, where it's like now losing a piece early game doesn't hurt as much. It's like Varga, just by riding it, replaces one of its attackers, and then we're gonna see the retire there from the Ford Revaltis, actually choosing to fight the board instead of reviving the Shenri, as we see he has 2 more in hand, so I guess doesn't need it.
3 cyclists, 3 Shenris, man, this is some game.
Yep, but I'm gonna see, like, dude, this hand is just not going down. Peter is absolutely balling.
I think it's worth mentioning, he probably needed to retire the Shura there, because obviously Shenri needs 1 less rear guards to proc, because he didn't play an order this turn. Otherwise, he would have had to been forced into swing into rear, which obviously is not guaranteed for the Shenris to proc.
Yeah, and it's also like, you're getting rid of a card that can recycle the Boulder Axe here. So we do see that it's not 10 Welstra energies. At first I was like, hold up. Well, not Welstra, Taizo energies.
Yeah, I've seen actually something. I don't know if I've ever seen it from Japanese players, but something I've seen a lot of English players do is that they'll only have two high rare energies in their decks, and they'll use it to denote fives and tens, so that as they come like out in
Oh.
order, they know exactly how much they're on without having to like count it each time, which I think is a really cool little thing.
Yeah, I think that's also good. It's like I have a lot of random energies, but I still feel like using them just when you got 25 minutes per round and double loss in time, it's like I always feel like playing with extra cards just adds more to the time. So I'm
Hmm.
not the biggest fan compared to the little, the counter card. But we see here, big 25k swing here. Actually going to force the two cards out of Peter. And it's going to be a slow little Varga start. I mean, this usually is like confirmed going in. And if you hit a crit here, you do put them to 4. But finds Persona, which is arguably just as important.
Yeah, the only downside is that he's only got 3 attacks this turn and not 4. He does leave his board not like fully empty, but empty enough that like the Shiranui isn't going to be super like the Magen Tenbu is going to be like the biggest threat in the world, and he's drawing quite a few cards. So I guess he's more
Hmm.
like trying to conserve and go for like that big push for lethal on Divine.
Yeah, so kind of like average pace for Varga, I suppose. It's like against Shiden as well. If you go first, you want to be in that kind of spot where, Peter's been drawing so many cards that you're going to have to decide if your divine skill is basically just there to take tempo and just decrease their hand. So if you can get them to 4, and then we haven't really seen any triggers from Bailey at all in general. So if you can see a crit on the Varga and then just like ask for, if you can hit the numbers big enough to the point that you're asking for like 3 card slash PG from the 3 Varga attacks, that's a good way of just like getting back the tempo in this game. It's not that much he's lost the tempo, but right now it's in this like weird tightrope situation where it is going to come down to a lot more variance, I think, playing into that swing. But we'll see how it plays out after these dominate swings.
Yeah, definitely. I think like something that is I think the hallmark of good players is like playing around what your opponent has. So for example, both players are on 3 damage, so both heals are live. Varga obviously has that threshold of like needing your opponent to be on 4, whereas Shiranui will just like do crazy amount of attacks and get there anyway. Peter did actually soul charge a Sanctitude with his Ford Revertis, so that's something for Bailey to keep in mind. And
Mm-hmm.
it's again here like Bailey guarded both of those dominate swings with a 5k shield, uh, knowing that if you hit the defensive on either one of those, it wouldn't have helped guard any other swings here. So guarding them was actually really smart. Takes the first rear guard swing from Peter to get that defensive there, now
And
making
also
the rest
deny
of
the
the turn,
heal.
much more guardable. Is I think like one of those ones that it's really small percentage points that really adds up. Big heal coming in.
Yep. This is big because Bailey not just made a heal whiff on Peter's side, but also like put themselves into this, range where they've not been seeing many triggers. It's nice that they also like finally get to see a heal too to keep things under control a little bit. And overall, like it's a good first dominate turn from Peter. But I would say that Bailey's actually in a pretty good position here. But ditching quite a lot of parts, especially a lot of parts that draw more cards that you do need in this matchup. But we're going to see. I mean, 4 open CB does mean it's like you got divine skill, double shoot up potentially if you really want to cash out everything.
Yeah.
Which I think you can kind of play it by ear and see if you are just getting mad lucky, and you can just kind of like push that snowball effect a little bit. And if you don't, then just don't commit the CB and still like reuse some resources with Shura. That's like one of the nice things about Varga is that it is a deck that makes its game plan happen very consistently for the most part because the floor is very high. It's like at the very end, like you just attack with Varga, you get 2 swings, you get retire. A lot of your other cards just like completely have perfect synergy with the rest of the deck. And here the Farhad as well being able to revive a lot of these grade ones that Bailey's been ditching is also very good. And if you can then pair this with a Shura, get the Farhad back to hand, reuse it defensively, it's always an appreciated part of this deck as well. Oh, but not the
Doesn't
doesn't
miss,
have the Shura.
yeah, misses the Shura. But I was gonna say like the fact that Bailey's been doing nothing but discarding 5Ks the entire past turn like makes you wonder, does he actually have any triggers in hand? Because even though ditching the trigger there would have been quote unquote an inefficient use of shield value, it lets him save his like extra combo pieces, which arguably could be really really handy. But yeah, we see here he is just like not gonna fully commit, and it's just gonna be
Mm.
like just a grade 3 on its own, being a 23k body. The Rokusei just drawing a card. But what's really cool is that something I think a lot of Varga players might not necessarily always appreciate is that your divine skill turn doesn't have to be lethal. Like Peter here started this turn with like 9 or 10 cards in hand. If Bailey
Hmm.
can whittle that down to like 3 or 4 and make the Oboro turn significantly less threatening, because we know Peter has a Mukuro, the Mukuro turn less threatening because we saw Peter drive check the Oboro earlier. Like
Yep.
making the Oboro turn survivable is already like huge in itself.
This is also big because you put the crit on the Vanguard on the 2 to pass, and then being able to now basically say like, hey, okay, you either going to 5 and I'm going to divine skill, or it's like, okay, you stay on 3, you have no CB, and you're also
Like 2, 3
still
cards
out
in
of heal
hand.
range.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was actually for Bailey. That was amazing turn, honestly. Like playing out the pacing of this game really well, and just goes to show like good experience in the matchup as well. I'd say.
Yeah, the only downside is that because he didn't have the Shura, he has to leave this dragon on the board, which is the prime Mukuro target.
Hmm.
Interestingly, that Peter chooses not to ward on that Oboro back to hand, even though he just got it with 2 ward ons. But yeah, so we're gonna call the Sekie, and are we
Yeah,
gonna
it hit
do
the
the?
defensive too, which is also very big.
We are gonna do the double Sekie play, which is that you can use Sekie's effect when your opponent's Vanguard attacks when you dominate them with Mukuro, which is it's a line now that I think a lot of people have now discovered, but it's still really, really strong, especially because
Yep.
Peter didn't like fully commit the previous turn using all of his soul, and between the triple Shenries, he's definitely got the soul to spare.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it also helps to like at this point, you have gotten Bailey to 5, so if that means that that extra little bit of tempo, it's like you have to kind of understand that for Peter, this is most likely the last turn unless a miracle happens. So it's definitely a bit of a do or die situation, but
Mm-hmm.
it does look like Bailey's been grinding resources a lot this game. But at the end of the day, the hand is actually not as big as you'd think. But with the use of the Farhad, you do get to keep looping some resources and guards the Bernaya there as well to just push out that power. And again, that defensive on the first dominate attack. Again, we've not seen that many triggers from Bailey this entire game, but
I mean,
they
that's
do
the
start popping up
crit.
at these very good timings.
Yeah, that's the crit he just triggered. So the question is, does he have any more to go the rest of these attacks? Like, you probably want to be PGing the Vanguard here, just because you don't want to get hit by OT or something.
I
Kind
to
of,
triple, yeah.
yeah. But then like this Furai is like what 30, 40k. So yeah, there comes PG. Sekie is also 40 without triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind, what are triggers?
Yeah, that ladder a little bit slow too. You wouldn't have minded a ladder for the turn, right? Just to keep your rears
Mm-hmm.
on board for the 5Ks, especially because one defensive can definitely make guarding against the rears a bit
Oh,
easier. But damn, that last card PG, that was actually very close. I mean, Bailey barely hung on, but had to ditch Persona for the first PG cost, so kind of accepted that, this is a turn of I'm gonna have to get rid of everything I have just to survive, and didn't go for the option of like, okay, does me not having anything, and let's say like this turn they just draw trigger and don't have anything else to work with, like does that mean that I'm better off just like gambling for a heal and then keeping my parts? But
having
they chose
yeah
to keep
survive.
on
So we're
playing the
not even
game,
gonna
and then it'd
make
be just a swing.
bodies. Yeah, so this is what I was gonna say. Like the really dangerous thing for Bailey here is that Peter can just like afford to potentially now that because Bailey's got it with OT quite early on. Peter can
Yeah,
just afford to like 3 to pass, no pass this, and then Divine Skill gets turned off. So he's just got 223k swings. The heal is handy, but I don't
very
think it's
good.
gonna be
Yeah, this
enough.
is
Oh, the crit as well, but
and the
like
crit. The
all it
second attack is big, but if Peter has the PG, that would be big, and it does look like it.
yeah.
Gonna go down to one card in hand again though, which is kind of or one or two.
It looks like 2, but
Two, yeah,
again,
but
this
still.
is Shiranui, like, they as long as he can stride, it doesn't really matter. So yeah,
Yeah, the
ditches the
ladder that he
ladder.
drew last turn, gonna be able to do that. But do keep in mind that if you do stride with a ladder, you don't actually have you don't get to go into the shouldn't stride. So it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
just into, a kind of a vanilla just crest pumper. Gonna get that back. Ooh, like to see the little tech here of the cycle card from the festival booster set.
Yeah, adding back the ladder just so we can play it, maybe dig for another piece. I was gonna say earlier, like, his 3 blanks, like ladder was no shield and 2 5k shields. If Pizza didn't have that PG in hand, there was a good chance he just dies there.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely a very, very close game between these two, but I
Holding down
actually
a
think the
PG to
good board.
attack with as well.
Yeah, this is definitely do or die. And you do still have another 4 attacks, even if you're not dominating stuff. It's like, you're still doing good numbers, but has to take it. Does hit the
I think
heal on 6.
I think that's the fourth one.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think we saw one in hand before too, right?
So there's the Sanctitude. Very
Ooh,
efficient. Crit alter rare. You see another trigger? Nope. Okay, so
one.
he's got 2 cards left in hand. One of them has to be the PG to guard the Furai. And then he has to just 2 triggers, and then guards the Furai, but then takes this 1 damage. And I think
Yep,
that's gonna
has to
be it.
take it, and there
Yeah.
is no heals left, as you said. Game 1 goes to Peter, but it definitely looked very shaky. Like, I think, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Bailey had taken that first one with how the pacing of the game was going on. But, Peter was able to stabilize, especially that last turn, I think, into a very, very good killing turn.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, is it like we said earlier, the fact that on Peter's first stride turn, he Bailey just got a lot of 5k shields because of that defensive, quote unquote, guarding efficiently, but giving up a lot of his pieces. If he had like maybe kept like the Shura back a bit, maybe kept like some other stuff in hand ready for like the quote unquote lethal turn, rather than using Divine as pressure, maybe there was a room for him to use Divine as lethal instead. Like, sure, Peter had been drawing like I think 5 cards throughout the early game due to various effects, but you know, you're like at that point, if you get the crit on the first 2 drives of the Varga turn, you are effectively PG checking your opponent, and I think there is value to that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So definitely think it's been a very good first game. So it is a best of 3 set here, as the players do get set up for the next one. And, it's going to be pretty tough because, Bailey went first that game, which does feel like you, as a Varga player, you are pretty happy to, even if it is the Stride deck set matchup. And it's most likely going to be the same thing in this game too. I'm assuming, loser gets to choose who
Yes,
goes first, right?
I mean I can see worlds where Bailey chooses to go second here because you know, Varga's still happy to go second, and especially like denying stride decks the ability to like just draw extra cards and get that first stride is potentially huge. Like you also get the first attack, which is really good for aggressive tempo. The only thing you like fall behind on is that if your opponent hits like 1 or 2 defensives during that early rush, it's a lot harder for you to push that advantage, and you maybe even get punished for calling down bodies that you would have used to shield with. But it's one of those ones where I think, given how the previous game went, Bailey knows that he has the ability to like just put Peter on that back foot and like say tell Peter like you need to guard this, you need to do this, you need to do that. Whereas Peter doesn't really threaten any of that until like the second stride. That gives you a lot of breathing room, and like the more you force your opponent into making plays that they don't want to play, I think the better it is. So yeah, we see there Bailey does choose to go second.
Yeah, well, I hope. That's for me always the risk against Trinity these days is like I think before Festival Booster, it was a bit easier to let them go first, but nowadays it's like they go forward Revaltus, triple Shenry, and it's like, well, so you're eating 23k swings. Even if it's even just forward Revaltus on his own is so annoying going second to deal with, and so we're gonna see this turn 2 from Peter. It could be very explosive.
Yeah, like I wouldn't even mind seeing him just call Wardons here just as a body. Like you lose out on the plus 5k power, but it's still an 8k swing into 8k. But no, none of that. We are just gonna go Shenry swing.
Okay.
That's
Surprisingly modest, but ooh, the heal is pretty nice.
yeah, Bailey. Happy to see like no forward revertus, but the heal does make pushing on turn 3 a little bit harder.
Yeah, and also the turn 2 from Bailey themselves too is a little bit, you know, depends what they want to commit, what they want to save for turn 3 as well. I do think, you want to have as much momentum as possible, but neither player. I mean, I guess Bailey did see the turn 1 gun cycle, but on Peter's side, we haven't seen too much of it, which was, I think, a big part of what helped Peter survive in the later turns last game as well, was like those early turns.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, the great one behind the Vanguard. Pretty interesting. Choosing to just, kind of giving up on the Impel Horn for the time being.
Yeah, it means that if he ever does want to make that impel horn, he just has to call over the ride line, which is it's a slight neg, which doesn't feel great. And I think it's the question
Pretty
as well, like,
big.
I mean, this is what I mean, like, about Peter being that 10k body. Like, if you put that grade 1 ride line in the front row, you're swinging with 2 10s. That defensive that's not, yeah, that burning flare like would have made one of those columns then not hit, which is, you're again quote unquote being punished. Like especially if Peter swings into rear and starves you of like damage to play with.
But the grade one only gets 2k once you're on Varga, so it doesn't
Oh, so it
have
didn't
the
even hit
targets
at all,
yet.
yeah. And you just didn't want to commit
Yeah,
the
yeah.
body. Because yeah, it
Yeah,
would
so
have been
would've-
an 18, so it still would have lost your trigger.
It's like if you have a Shenry or something, you can back it up with, but then your Vanguard swing gets pretty weak, so it's going to get guarded. So it kind of depends. Like at the end of the day, committing a booster behind Vanguard does mean that you are in that like confirmed hitting range. But here we see another heal coming down from Peter. Very modest early game, let's say. Like from Peter's side, he's just been kind of attacking, healing, which, I mean, the heals are coming out early, which both good and bad if you're Bailey. But if you're Peter, I mean, you just have to keep in mind that a lot of the damage you're taking from now on is most likely going to stick for the entire game.
Yeah, but at the same time, especially when you're healing early game where there's only 1 or 2 damage coming in, that basically buys you like 1 or 2 turns. And buying 1 or 2 turns as a stride deck is the best thing you can possibly ask for, because
Yep.
the goal of the game is to overwhelm your opponent with crest power scaling. So, Peter can now reasonably say, like, okay, this game is definitely going to second stride, maybe even third stride, by which point my opponent is likely to have overcommitted all of his resources. They probably will have at least burned 1 or 2 PGs, making my plus 20k front row effectively unguardable.
Pretty interested by the Bernai behind the grade 3 instead of the axe, just because you're asking for 5k here, but as you can see, he's pretty happy to ditch that 5k in particular. Whereas making the 23, I feel like most likely confirms you the damage there if they don't have a trigger, but we're going to see the first Varga swing go through. Second swing is going to get the boost, so it is, coming in with 33. I don't think we saw any triggers from Bailey.
No, it was 2 blanks, so which is really, really good for Peter there. He can even afford to take the extra damage. The heal is live
heal again.
the third time, which then makes this one. Yeah, that column then becomes super guardable.
Damn, if this is the Peter I know, he's gonna start Fortnite dancing after the next heal. It's gonna get crazy. Man, that is so strong. Like also not just healing down as you said, like buying turns, but also the fact that he's got so much draw now as well from all the discards, and also the ability to like use energy to get back the cards he's discarding as well for more resources. So overall, it's been a very strong start.
Forever, and then like at this point, Peter doesn't even need to commit like Furais, Sekies, Esperidias. Like he's got that Genkai in the back row. There's a body to dominate. He's got the one counter blast he needs for the Magentendu. He's happy to just like slowly nickel and dime Bailey and be like, okay, you get some damage, you get 3-4 attacks. I'm gonna take 1 or 2, but eventually, like there will be a point in this game where we'll both be on 4 damage, but you will be much further behind than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's quite an interesting turnout so far, and I'm definitely curious to see how things will pace out for Bailey, because so far it feels like they've not been making particularly big mistakes or anything. I think like we can bring up some rearguard placement, but overall they've been pushing tempo as they should. But compared to last game, like even though Peter's not been doing much, he's just been kind of blessed by his deck so far. And we're gonna see here Shenry come down. The rearguards are out of the board as well, so Shandy is completely active, and we're gonna see 4 attacks on top of the dominate ones here still this turn.
Yeah, Bailey does have like a massive hand, so it's not like his back's against the wall, but again, like you're now in that position of like, okay, do I start using some of this hand to guard and like fall behind on numbers, or do I take a little bit of this and like just try and pull ahead and just try and even it out? Like both of them are effectively playing from behind positions, which Varga is fairly good at, especially again, it just comes down to like, do you check your triggers? But it's really hard, especially when he checks a front like that, like then all the calculations you just made suddenly go out the window. It's like, okay, now this is suddenly like 35, and it's like this is now 2 cards to guard instead of 1 card to guard, even though he had a defensive.
Yeah, so far seeming to deal okay with it. You also have to think about how much CB do you want to really like get the good push this turn. You can kind of expect not to be able to use your divine skills. So if you want to just like if you just Varga shootout, it's okay. But then if they start to like really chip away 1 damage at a time, then you're locked out of divine skill for the rest of the game. So it also depends on how Peter wants to approach the Varga game plan in response. But overall, I don't really see a reason to necessarily slow down in terms of how well it's been going for Peter so far.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, like Bailey's the one that now wants to accelerate the pace of this game. Like he does have the 2 damage, so he's got access to Vanguard skill and Divine skill. But then the question is like, how much of that do you want to push? Like, do you want to commit that without having the Shura up? Are you even able to get Peter to fall this turn? There's a lot of questions coming down. So we see the Shura being committed.
Impale Horn. I guess committing the Rideline Vanguards, like Rideline Grade 1, in the sense that you know it's going to get dominated and cleared out is fine. It's like you didn't have to overcall it in that sense. So targeting the Impale Horn here with the Shura, getting that back to hand, so you always have like strong second Vanguard swing from the Varga now, which is good. And you are going to go for the Shura, it seems. It's going to get popped. Are we going to CB for it, though? Right, hits the
think
drop.
we are, yeah. Because this is what you were saying earlier about how, like, Bailey now is adapting to, like, how Peter's playing. It's like, okay, Peter's got his heals. Ooh, OT is huge. I think Peter no-guarded this as well.
Yep, adapt to this,
yeah.
100 mil 2 crit. Gonna put him to 3, though, so it's not actually, like, that bad, but if you can...
He goes into damage, which is not ideal for Peter.
Yeah, so that's kind of annoying because you'd have to basically... So Varga's gonna stand. You'd have to block the other 2 attacks and then also PG the Vanguard. So you are getting like 4 cards out of... Actually, no, because both of the attackers are like 30 and 33.
Mm-hmm.
So you're actually essentially saying it's like, okay, 2 card, 2 card, 2 card, including the PG. So you're basically thinning out the entire hand just to stay on 3 damage and not have to deal with his divine skill.
Well, he has no damage for the divine skill.
I mean, if let's say, so first things, oh yeah, true, he doesn't have the CB for it. Yeah, you're right. Never mind.
I mean, it does make divine skill live later on because again, Peter's seen 3 heal, so the chance of him healing back down to 3 is super low.
Yeah. So it's like just to put them into the range, I guess.
Yep.
But I think if you are, so knowing that you don't get divine skill this turn, I think the idea is then to guard the shootout, guard the grade 3, and then take the Vanguard because you can be on 5. You know, it's at the end of the day, if they're persona riding, the scaling from Varga is relatively like significant enough that like 1 defensive isn't necessarily going to change everything, but takes the first damage, goes to 4, doesn't hit the defensive, and then basically now
the argument was to make everything else easier to guard if you hit this defensive.
Yeah, but this is still going to be 4 cards out of hand, just to get rid, deal with these 2. All right, gonna draw a card, get the card back, of course, the Impale Horn from the shooter effect, and then now it comes down to how much does Peter discard? It's gonna be another 2 cards.
It's not awful, but it is whistling that down slowly. Like Peter has used more cards this turn to guard than he had made back the previous turn, which is definitely where you want your opponent to be as Varga. But like something I was saying just before he checked that OT is that Bailey's been adapting really well to how Peter's playing. Like Peter knows that he's going to take this game to the long term because he's hit all those heals. So because of that, Bailey can assume that. Also because knowing that Peter can't heal out of it, Peter's going to be incentivized to not let Bailey divine skill for as long as he possibly can. Therefore, it is better for him to use that counterblast on the Shura to get that minor advantages where he can, rather than trying to all in on this big divine skill.
Yeah. I think that is, it's definitely valid. So it's like now, as you said before as well, Bailey's basically got Peter in permanent divine skill range. So now it just comes down to how you want to use that. And also keeping the one, staying on 4 means that you can get rid of, take one of the rear guard swings, try to bang on defensive to make, the rest of the turn a bit easier. And then I'm assuming Bailey will go to 5 here as well to kind of put themselves into heal range for their own next turn too. But so far, Peter's just drawing cards.
I think guarding the first one's fine because it's again the smallest thing, easiest one to guard.
Yeah.
Whereas eventually, so you see here the Blioberus, but if Peter commits a Furai here, 100% you're taking the first Furai without question.
Yeah.
Well, Sekiei is close enough. I will give it that. Shenri as well.
Yeah.
So only 4 attacks, but still 4 large attacks. This is second stride after all.
Yeah, these are huge. You got big crest power. We've got all the buffs from Shenri also live now too.
I think if Bailey wants the 5th damage for his divine skill, he definitely takes this one because you can't risk crit rare, crit other rare on this triple drive here.
Yeah, that's basically the only attack you were allowed to take in this instance. So Gonna be the Vanguard swing, and then still 2 more rears to go.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
got
think
the
Peter forgot to
3.
draw a card off of the Sekie.
Oh,
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
there we go.
So yeah,
A little
PG
late,
comes
but
down for the
it was good.
Vanguard, as you expect.
All right, still pretty spoiled for choices. The hand's pretty big, relatively healthy. I mean, that OT definitely helped also. I think we were discussing something and I missed what he put back from the OT, from the blue OT. I'm gonna...
I assume it was either the grade 2 from Rideline or Ashura.
Yes, that would be the logical conclusion, I think. Depending on what's in hand, I guess, but so far guarding everything. Gonna ditch the Elementaria for the rear swing. I mean, it is a pretty big one, but
I mean, I think committing the Sanctuary 2 there pretty much says to Bailey, like, or tells Peter, like, okay, he's gonna go for it next turn. Like, you know, I have to go full on defense mode here, which is not unreasonable. Like,
yep.
I think the Sekie and the Shenri definitely helps make his hand a little bit healthier. Like, this time becomes a little bit more easy to guard, and because you're already in divine range, there's an argument to just taking the first rear guard swing anyway.
Yeah, okay. Not sure if he was asking for Guncycler amount, but we're gonna see this next turn for Bailey here. Do we have Persona though? That's gonna be a pretty big factor.
Yeah, he's used one, damaged the second, so he needs to see the last one right here to really, really have pressure going in.
Yeah, it's a little unlikely. Yeah, it doesn't look like they've got it. I feel like it would have been slammed down by now. So now it comes down to what other board they can build, and also the fact that Peter can still bank on potentially hitting a defensive on the 5th there, and then being able to just deal with the rest of the turn. I do think this is the divine skill turn, just because you want to like refill your hand for next turn. You also want to like try to bank on like healing down so you can have another Varga turn. I'm assuming he's running Caliburn as is, you know, Regulus of choice, but haven't seen that come up yet, I think.
We do see the Rokisei, which is very, very useful. You know, it gives that little bit of extra power, forces the Sekie to not intercept, meaning that if Peter does want to guard this, he's going to have to commit a lot of pieces up front. But again, I think like in Peter's position, like this is the one attack you are allowed to take.
Yeah, it basically is, but it's just a 15k shield, so we're going to choose to actually guard it. But I do agree that after this, things start to get a little bit, a little dangerous. Oh, no, he's gonna, okay, we get a little rewind. A little
so
Makiamodoshi in there.
Yeah. Choosing the first to take the first attack, I think, is definitely smart there. Like, you can fish for the defensive. You get the ability to just, you know, deny your opponent, like, going crit rear, which is huge. Energy Cycler comes down, the very last one. And without Persona Ride, this is very guardable. So I think that's, yeah, no pass, because we've seen the OT come out.
Yeah.
So there's the Caliburn.
There's the Caliburn.
No crit, though, makes this suddenly a lot less threatening.
Yep, so the second swing is also just hard guardable. We did see Peter use ladder last turn, I believe, so
the board
that is why the rears are sticking around, yeah. So at this point, it's like you kind of have to divine. Yeah, you have to divine skill. You also want to use the Impel Horn here, just kind of dig for cards, be able to survive, and then you're basically switching into a grind game, which is unfortunately against a Stride deck, you're always unfavored. Their scaling is always going to outpace yours, and you're always reliant on Persona Riding for your scaling, and that's kind of why I do feel like the going first in this matchup is somewhat okay. But Peter's still got a pretty healthy hand, gonna just drop a PG for this divine skill attack. And it comes down to what those last 2 checks will be. We do see a heal.
Massive.
Very huge. Into
crit
a
as
crit.
Well. So this is now 43?
Yeah, it's, when you put it that way, when he's on 23, it's not the biggest. It's 25k shield. I mean, just still, 2 cards, basically.
2 cards out of a 5-card hand is still asking for a bit.
Okay, I guess a little bit more? Might have missed a trigger earlier than if he's guarding that much. Or was that damage not a defensive? I guess it wasn't. It looked like a burning...
Like it looks like a burning flow, but I think it's not, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it was, but suppose it wasn't. Then I guess the 43 does hit a bit harder against the 13k body.
The other good thing about the heal there for Bailey is that, as you say, he's switching to the grind game now because this turn hasn't been lethal. He's just building up his hand, drawing a bunch of cards. The issue is that he has 0 countercharge in his deck for Varga's restand outside of healing. So him being on 5 face down damage means that he's basically never doing 4 attacks from now on unless he healed. So the heal there is really, really impactful. But the other thing to consider now is as both players like get down to like these last few turns, is also deck out. Like there's a good chance that one of them just decks themselves out before anything else.
I mean, they do look pretty thin on both ends at this point, right?
They've also both been hammering those energy cyclers.
Exactly. So it's definitely, I mean, both good and bad. At the end of the day, if you can survive, it's good. So these dominate attacks, or dominate attack, the one so far, is gonna do its thing. And we do get a deck count. So as you mentioned, that is getting pretty low. And then he hasn't used the stride effect yet, right?
No. And I think he has,
still has that.
I think he has enough soul. Like it looks like 4 or 5 souls, so you could actually do double Sekie twice, which would be insane. But no, it's just gonna make the Furai instead.
Okay. All right, here comes the dominate swing, and this one's gonna be pretty annoying. And then block the Vanguard one, then of course the usual, take that one, give up the rear. Did Peter twin drive already? No, not yet.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. You drew the card from the Sekie effect. Crit to rear.
Yeah, that's dangerous. It's very dangerous. It's like you can also choose to play very lame here.
So that Sekie is now 30, 40, 50.
With a 2 crit. Give me that hand. Give me that hand.
We've only seen Bailey use, I think, 2 PGs, like the Sanctuary and 1 regular one. So there is a chance he can just like guard the rest of this. Or maybe bank on his own heals. Like obviously your opponent's on 5, so you need to heal on 6 only, which is kind of rough.
Yeah, it's Caliburn goes as well. Damn, that's a big piece going away, but
I mean, arguably, if he's in grind mode, that's a 0 shield card in his hand, so
yeah,
kind of understandable. This is the one that you can afford to take. Is only 1, yep, to give yourself your Vanguard restand cost.
Yep.
Yeah. That Sekie 60k now with a crit before triggers. Oof.
On a 5-card hand too. That's pretty rough after just asking for the PG there too. It's gonna be no guard. Forward in a front.
So you can heal here, but the heal doesn't come down.
Yeah, so that's pretty big for Peter. I mean, 2-0 win is definitely a huge celebration there for the team.
Yeah.
And I mean, definitely showed that Shidney is still very much at the top. You know, Varga's been looking very good in the recent English meta. I'm assuming this is before Shoujo Doji came out.
Yeah, I mean, just before.
Right. So, you know, it is definitely still a very strong pick, especially right before Shoujo Doji. So, Peter, strong, 2-0. Yep. That first game definitely looked a bit less like as dominating, but this game, dude, he was blessed by powers above.
Yep.
In order to deliver the dub for the team.
There is a phrase between my friend group for what we call when someone heals 3 times. It's I'm not gonna say it because it's a bit of an in-joke, and I don't want to like ruin like that for everyone. But yeah, definitely like when you see 3 heals, I think there's always like you get to loosen your tie just a little bit, and like Peter there, as we said, he's a very he is a skilled player. He knows what he's doing, and just like having that breathing room to like stop, slow down, think about what you're doing, and like adjust. Be like, okay, I can now like deny him of this, or I can now force him into doing this. But at the same time, from Bailey, like really, really skilled play, like being okay, like he's never let me divine skill, so I'd rather focus my energy here. I'm gonna guard efficiently because I know I haven't seen triggers yet. Like again, I say like switching gears, like okay, I need to start playing grind now, which means guarding a little bit more, even though it is sure it's gonna be hard to guard. Giving myself that room to like, okay, I can take this and I have to guard these. Like really, really well played from both players. And there were times during both games where Bailey could have won there if he just like had maybe like one more trigger, or like if Peter didn't have that PG.
Yeah. When you said hitting the third heal and loosening the ties, like if you had the player comms on, you just hear like a beer can opening in the back. It's like, all right, I'll have 5 million beers, please. I can calm down now. This game is in the it's in the pocket. But no, as you said, it's like very, very solid. Especially that first game, I think was very hard to tell who was going to win. It was very neck and neck. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, Bailey also did a really good showing with Varga as well. Kind of like both the ups and the downs of the deck. And I think, luckily, you know, as the deck gets future support as well, it's only going to get more and more of those ups as well. But yeah, it was really fun to hop on and cast with you as well, to see, you know, a bit of the league. I think it's been, watching it from the side has been fun. I think it's a really cool initiative. So I'm glad that people are also hopefully been enjoying it. And watching like all the very different, you know, all the different casters from and content creators hopping on to talk about these games. So thank you for putting this on and for having me here as well.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. Yeah, I know you're busy, but yeah, it's been real fun having you on again. And yeah, this is, I mean, effectively the end of the VPL, because again, with the end of this match, the Owl Coop now soars into the lead, 5-3, locking up the title as VPL Season 1 champion. So, you know, congratulations to Ootman and the rest of the team. Very well done. We are still going to see the 9th game, just for completeness' sake. And so that will be coming up real soon as well, even though the result doesn't quite matter. So you'll see that as we get to it, the commentary for that game will be a little more chill, a bit more relaxed. But yeah, that is going to be it for today. Thank you so much to everyone for watching content thus far. Thank you everyone for supporting the VPL, for playing in it. And yeah, it's been a massive blast to put it on and see everyone come together. We will definitely do one next year. But for this video, that is going to be it for today. Thank you once again to Kris for joining me. I know I don't need to link his stuff in the description, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, everyone knows he is. But yep, that's going to be it. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a lovely day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.